It's been just over a year since we announced Microsoft Priva as a solution, and privacy is of increasing importance to our customers. In addition to the well-known GDPR regulation here in Europe, privacy regulations are emerging in nearly every region in the globe, with more than 70% of countries now having data protection and privacy legislation in place. As the number and scope of privacy standards have proliferated, privacy becomes an expectation of customers and stakeholders to enable trusted business. Today, we're really excited to update you on where we are on our journey with Microsoft Priva, what we're hearing from our customers, and sharing with you best practices for you, our partners, when you're delivering Microsoft Priva to your customers. I would now like to introduce our first speaker, Ben Valguth. He's going to set the scene with an overview of Microsoft Purview, our compliance solutions. Ben, thank you very much, and over to you, and please enjoy the afternoon, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you too, Catherine. I'm going to share my slides and let me know. I think you should all see them now. Good, yeah. As Catherine said, my name is Bernd Felgut, and I'm a specialist for our risk management, compliance, and privacy solutions. So everything that falls under the Purview and under the Priva brand. If you want to contact me later on, here are also my contact details, and you'll also find me on LinkedIn. In Microsoft terminology, since many of you are partners and probably know our internal job positions very well, I'm a so-called global black belt, which means that I'm in an international role covering the whole EMEA region, and I'm also available for joint customer meetings and support for you partners in the background, whatever you need. So feel free to contact me also after this meeting for any follow-ups that we are going to want to do together. Today, I'm here to talk about the introduction of Purview, and I have also slightly put in Priva where that made sense, and the agenda is very simple for today here from what I will do. First of all, for those that are already experts in what Purview and Priva is, I will briefly talk about Purview here in these 45 minutes, but in a way that even the experts haven't seen yet. So I've built the deck and the talk here today by myself. And for those that are newcomers for you, I've done this in a way that's easy to consume. So when you have seen this 45-minute slot, you will be able to sell Purview tomorrow to any customers. So, and I will also try to explain why the platform is more than its parts. So I've put everything into a nice document-driven workflow where you will see how everything fits together so that the whole solution makes more sense than just every single point of it as a part. Finally, I will also add some of the latest Ignite announcements that we've made. So for those of you who haven't had the time to watch all the Ignite sessions related to Purview, you will also benefit from a short update while we are talking about each of these solutions. And the best of it, all of that is being done in one slide that you've never seen before. So, and here it comes. So when we talk about Purview and Priva, I really thought about, as I said, doing this in a new way. So to align the solutions that we have with the life cycle, typically about how content is created, how content is managed, protected, investigated, and finally deleted, destroyed. And this slide shows you how it should be along this document lifecycle. So when we talk about documents, first of all, I think everyone knows this here, especially of all of you that are partners in this space and that are working with IT solutions every day, the data is more and more proliferated. It's coming from everywhere. Not just users create data, but nowadays even bots on websites create data, are answering to questions, and more applications and machines are also creating data, so that this flow of data is enormous nowadays. A lot of data is also created by humans, as I mentioned, and then gets imported or modified across various locations. So as you know, especially now with after the pandemic, many people work from home and store data on mobile devices or on USB sticks or in different cloud solutions, not just Microsoft 365, but also others potentially. And I've just put a few other logos here on this slide. This creates a problem for, first of all, knowing what content is where and how sensitive the content is. Should it actually go to some of these other cloud solutions, or should very sensitive content be uploaded or ported to a USB stick? And that's why the first thing that customers typically want to do is, if possible, classify the data. So that you know whether something is sensitive, whether something should be treated as confidential or highly confidential, or something is public, so that it can be shared externally, etc., etc. So, and in the best way, when we have Microsoft Information Protection here as a solution for this, and in the best way, we have a computer-guided way to scan this content in the background and guide the user by how it should be classified. So that the machine basically reads what is the user typing, and then can apply appropriate labels or appropriate protection capabilities later on. So we can scan for these so-called sensitive information types, which can be a very common example that's often used is credit card information or other bank account numbers that may be sensitive because it may be your customers' bank account numbers or your personal ones. But there may also be health data like diseases. There may be personal data like driving license numbers, personal ID cards, passport numbers, etc. So lots of different kinds of data that may be sensitive for different reasons. There may also be intellectual property that you want to protect because it's confidential. There are keywords in it or other regular expressions that you may find sensitive. So then when we know that something is sensitive and should be classified, we want to label the content appropriately. So data gets labeled based on the sensitivity as a dimension of how confidential or how sensitive something is, as I mentioned. So this is the Microsoft Information Protection as well that does this labeling and classification. Lately at Ignite, we have announced that we will extend our solutions very much to an improved experience, especially based on Adobe PDF files. We have announced 3 points there, which I find as the major points. One is that we have built in native sensitivity labels in Adobe Acrobat in the editor. So whenever someone creates a PDF document directly from the Adobe editor, they can use the same native classification and labeling capabilities as within Office. The second point is we can, which is even more important from my perspective, we can now also inherit the label when documents get converted from Office documents into PDF files. So I think this is the more common use case that people start to create a Word document and then they create a PDF and they want to share it with externals, with customers, for example. So that's a very common use case. And now you don't have to relabel the PDF document. The label is now inherited whenever you create a PDF document out of a Word document. And the third big announcement that we have made is the first 2 points are already in public preview, are already released. And the second point that I will, or the third point that I will mention now, is in private preview, which is that we can also directly label PDF documents now in SharePoint Online and in OneDrive. So we don't have to download PDF documents when they are in SharePoint. You can directly right-click on the experience there with the 3 dots, as in SharePoint or OneDrive, and then you can, there's a menu with editing the metadata, and you can apply the label, same like in Office or in PDF documents when you're in the editor. So this, I think, are great news for customers in terms of labeling and classification. We've also announced that we have 23 new out-of-the-box trainable classifiers, which support auto-labeling. And this enables organizations to more quickly and comprehensively find sensitive documents across multiple business categories that these trainable classifiers are trained for. So this is, for example, to find contracts or to find other business documents like invoices. So those that are not just specified by a simple keyword, but more fuzzy documents that the whole document is representing a certain document type like invoice or contract, etc. These new 23 trainable classifiers are now also in public preview. In addition, we have 42 new credential sensitive information types, which lets you find user credentials, for example, default passwords and access key tokens, not just within Microsoft 365, but also for multi-cloud deployments resources like in AWS or others. And those credential sets are now also generally available. So those are some of the exciting news that we have recently announced from Ignite. Then when the documents are labeled, the next point is that you can apply a protection. So when something is confidential, you may want to restrict the usage rights of the documents. That means that the Azure Rights Management applies certain policies that only the people that are specified or that are part of a specific workflow can then read the document. For others, the content will stay encrypted so that they can't read it, even if they have access to it, physical access, like, for example, on a USB stick. So this is something that is used by many organizations when you protect content wherever it lives, and even if someone has physical access to it. The nice part that we have announced here, that we have now even the ability to co-author encrypted documents on mobile devices, which ensures that secure collaboration is even possible from Android or iOS mobile devices, which are very often used by executives. So when they just use a mobile phone, an iPhone, for example, but are very often dealing with very sensitive content, confidential or highly confidential encrypted content, this can now be possible even on mobile devices. So that's another good news from Ignite. And the second dimension, moving on to the next big pillar in our compliance stack, is the retention. Data gets retained according to laws and regulations, as it's written here on this side. And this can be achieved with data lifecycle management and records management on our platform. So this means that, for example, when we have a contract, in most states here in the European Union where I live, contracts need to be retained for 10 years after the contract ends for tax reasons. For example, there's a value-added tax added to it, to everything that a certain organization is contracting or is billing someone for. That's why you need to retain contracts, invoices for a certain period of time, like, for example, as I said, 10 years after the contract ended, so that somebody knew how the tax was associated to it, if it was correctly. And that's where these data lifecycle management and records management gets you to. This is very advanced technologies, which are even made for those organizations that are very highly regulated, like banks, for example, that need to follow the strong SEC regulations of the US Securities and Exchange Commission according to 17A4 of those regulations, etc., for banks and financial services organizations in the stock markets. So that means that we can really build a platform for those kinds of documents for those organizations that are highly regulated. Similarly, for pharma organizations or wherever data needs to be retained so that no one can tamper with it for a long time. There are retention labels announced as a new capability that users can apply for data now also in Microsoft Teams. Before we had these retention labels mainly in SharePoint and in OneDrive and in Exchange, and now you can apply retention labels also directly from the Files tab within Teams. What we have also announced is that we can now retain the exact version of a document that has been shared. For example, when you think about these modern attachments, and this is something that is also very relevant for financial services organizations, where the regulator exactly requires for a company to retain the version that has been shared or viewed by the other party and not just the document, how it evolved over time. So obviously when you share just a link, somebody may later on still alter the link so that it's not clear anymore how the content actually looked like when the other party has accessed the link. So this is now available for customers, that we can retain the exact shared version that has been shared by someone. The third point that we have also announced at Ignite is that the Microsoft Graph API for data lifecycle management is now generally available. So you can manage retention labels and events-based retention now with an API and not just with the user interface that we had before. So this gives users this or organizations this second dimension, not just how sensitive something is, but also how long something needs to be retained. And this is applied, on the storage capability. As I said, we have these capabilities in Teams, now in SharePoint, in OneDrive, and in Exchange to apply these labels and these policies to documents. Then when a document is stored somewhere in Microsoft 365 or elsewhere, it obviously travels also very often. So, but you want to limit, especially when something is sensitive, how and where it can travel. I already mentioned the Azure Rights Management capabilities that apply very specifically who can actually read a document, but you want to probably apply additional policies. So this, and also for non-encrypted content. So when you just share something confidential, you may use data loss prevention policies to specify exactly how a document can be handled and where and to whom it can be shared. For example, we have endpoint data loss prevention, which allows you to specify, for example, that sensitive information or confidential information cannot be copied to USB drive, or cannot be copied from a clipboard from one business document to a personal document, or cannot be uploaded to certain cloud applications, etc. So those kinds of things can be managed with data loss prevention policies. The second point is that when, and this is where Priva comes into play, where Samba, my colleague Samba, will go into more detail later on, where you also want to monitor with certain policies how data can be handled when privacy is concerned. So, for example, when a lot of personal information is in that content, Priva allows you to specify, and it comes with 3 different policies for data minimization, so that content is not overshared, and data overexposure. That means too many people have access to a document. Minimization is actually for how long content is stored, and then the data transfer policies, so that data can only be transferred or limited. The transfer can be limited to between certain regions or certain departments within an organization. Yeah. What's new in data loss prevention and the announcements at Ignite that we have made is that we can now more granular specify, for example, the authorization of USB drives, as I mentioned before, USB sticks. So you can create exceptions or specific groups of users where sharing through USB is allowed, where for other USB devices sharing would be disallowed. And the same goes for authorized printers. You can apply general policies that printing is not allowed, but you may say that there's an exception when people go to the office and print in the office the documents, so that you there have more control over the documents, for example. And the second policy that becomes more granular is the authorization for how information can be shared through network shares. So users will be able to create groups of network share path and designate restrictive actions for each group within a DLP policy. What we also announced is that we are now publishing possibilities to use network locations as a condition in DLP policies. As an example, users will be able to block copying sensitive content to network shares on a personal Wi-Fi network, but not on a corporate Wi-Fi network or a VPN. That would be something that you can now distinguish. And finally, the fifth big announcement, besides printers, USB, network shares, and network conditions, is sanctioned and unsanctioned site groups for different sensitive files. So with this capability, users will be able to create groups of service domains and manage restrictions for the groups within the DLP policy. For example, you allow upload of sensitive data only to corporate SharePoint sites and nowhere else. So those are some of the exciting news in data loss prevention. On top of data loss prevention, which I definitely recommend for every organization, for every customer that you may be working with, is to bring all of these signals that the different solutions may generate, the information protection policies, the data loss prevention policies, and how users are treating the information, into a common view and rather monitor the behavior of a user, and when they behave risky, in alerts that are bringing all of those actions into a nice context. And this is what insider risk management does. Insider risk management and communication compliance are really the two solutions here that monitor this risky activities of users. For example, we have certain templates there that look at users when they steal intellectual property at their point of departure or prior to their point of departure. This is a very common use case that many manufacturing companies are looking at, or many tech companies, innovative companies, that they want to see what users are doing and if they are becoming risky insiders, copying a lot of information in the last days of their employment before they leave the organization, for example. So this is what insider risk management can help you with, and can even integrate with signals from these HR systems. For example, when you have leavers in the organization, or when someone had a bad review and then is on a revenge against the organization and behaves suddenly very risky. So this is something that gives you a nice overview. Whenever those things happen, there are also specific policies which you can monitor in communication compliance, for example, that allow you to monitor the communication streams for indicators of fraud or other things, or harassment, or workplace violence, when people are using aggressive language against others, etc. So these are very innovative solutions that are both relevant for some of these use cases when it comes to financial things like fraud, etc., but also more from a communication policy conformity, these harassments and violence in the workplace that you may want to monitor if that is something concerning and you feel that this is escalated by some of the employees in an organization. What was announced at Ignite is that in the insider risk management module, we have now sequence detection, which really nicely enhances the triage and detection capabilities. So user actions like the downloading of confidential data or printing a number of important documents may not be a potential data risk on its own, but a series of actions, as I mentioned before, could indicate potential data security risks. So downloading and then renaming some of the files, maybe printing some of the files, deleting some of the files, and this sequence of detections may seem suspicious, whereas the download itself may not be suspicious by or a single action may not be as suspicious as such. So this is a nice way how we bring the different signals together and how we give investigators a better view, overview about what is happening in their environment. Insider risk management and communication compliance can now also be integrated more nicely so that you can use communication compliance risk signals, like, as I mentioned, when someone uses aggressive wording, also within an insider risk management policy. So those two solutions can be combined with each other. Obviously, all of these solutions like insider risk management and data loss prevention, they benefit from the previous points that I mentioned when you know what information is sensitive, for example. So when you have applied labels and classification, then you can see how users are or you even get richer insights into all the alerts. So you can see that they not only have downloaded, or user doesn't only have downloaded 1,000 documents, but how many of them are actually confidential. Is this actually something that should be concerning because of the class of the sensitivity that you have applied to a certain document? So there you see that the whole platform is more than just the sum of its parts. Then the next point here is that leads from insider risk management and communication compliance to the next points in our solution is e-discovery and audit. So once you have a case against an insider or also an external case where somebody's used the organization, or you have a competitor complaint or something where you have a court case where you might hand out data, this is what then results in an e-discovery case where someone investigates what has happened. You probably put a hold on the data and you investigate also the audit logs, what exactly has happened, and you need to probably provide the evidence in a certain case against somebody or hand it out to a court case to the opposing party. Here, there were also some interesting developments that we announced at Ignite. And many customers often consider shared documents or cloud attachments as a form of communication, and therefore are required to preserve and make that content discoverable. So while users benefit from quickly sharing files for visibility and collaboration, this practice has in the past been very challenging for e-discovery and legal professionals. And that's why we now help customers effectively meet these regulatory obligations for discovery with the e-discovery premium license, where we support the ability to discover the version of your document that has been shared at the time when it was shared. So this will help ensure that the correct document information is available to an e-discovery process, and not just the latest version, as I mentioned before. And as a second point, more and more business critical information is shared through Microsoft Teams. And we had requests from several customers that they said nowadays that all of our decision processes and so are made within teams, we need to retain the reactions to messages. So whenever someone gives a thumbs up, for example, or a heart or a laugh, these capturing the reactions of the users are actually very important to understand who knew what and when, and if somebody agreed to something or disagreed to something. And that's why for these legal holds and investigations, you can now see the reactions and the edits and also the deleted messages within the e-discovery and audit solutions. Yeah, for audit, there's also an update about the audit search. Everyone who has used the audit search in the past may know how slow it was sometimes when you had large amounts of an audit volume. This with the new search interface and the search improvements, the audit search improvements that we have now applied, you can now run 10 concurrent audit search jobs and review the progress percentage, result numbers, and job status, all from within the UI. And you can also see historical search jobs and how they resulted and store them over 30 days within the solution after completion. So this is a huge improvement for everyone that has been using audit in the past. Finally, yeah, at the end of the life cycle of the document, data needs to get deleted as part of a data lifecycle or records management policy. You will probably want to apply disposition review, which means that somebody reviews all the documents again before they are finally deleted. If you don't want an automatic deletion, which is the other option, or you just do nothing. But if you apply a disposition review, then the news here is that we have announced at Ignite is that a disposition review can now be customized with a Power Automate workflow. So this workflow can have up to 5 different steps. So you can add different reviewer groups whenever data gets retired or deleted, so that first of all, for example, someone from the business unit who owns the data can do a review, and then at the second step, finally, someone from the legal department may have a second review, something like that. This is now possible with the latest extensions that we have announced at Ignite. And with that, I think we have covered the whole purview. And oh, sorry, no, I missed something. There's one more thing. You may have externals asking for information access and erasure of information. So following on the GDPR rights that the user has, for example, GDPR Article 17 or Article 25, that allow you to ask somebody that has stored information about you what that information is, or also the right to be forgotten. That's how it's commonly called, the right for erasure. This is also something that Priva follows up with currently. Priva can investigate this within Microsoft 365, and Randall and Samba will talk about all of this in more details and what's coming next. So with this, I have now finally completed this picture about how everything works together with Purview and Priva. Purview, all the Purview modules are here in blue, and the 2 Priva modules are in red. And I hope that this has given everyone a nice overview. Any questions about this part?
Thank you, Bernd. We've been answering questions as we've been going along in the chat, which you probably can't see whilst you're presenting.
Yeah. Have you anything that's still open, or has everything been cleared? I think Randall is a good expert, and Samba too, to answer all those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Randall and Samba have been busy answering the questions. So I think thank you very much, Ben, for giving us an overview of Purview and setting the scene to lead to our next presenter, who is my colleague in the EMEA SPD team, Samba Koita, who's going to give us a deep dive on Microsoft Priva and its use cases and best practices. Thank you, Samba.
Of course, thank you very much, Catherine. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Samba Koita. I'm a senior business strategy manager at Microsoft, and I look after our leading edge security and privacy solutions. So over the next 45 minutes, as Catherine said, we will talk about Priva. We'll see the use cases. I also have a demo to show you really in real life some of the key capabilities and some of the use cases. So with that, let's get started. So usually, before we dive in directly to the Priva solution, and I like to have this type of conversation with partners, is really starting by defining basically, what privacy is, what is personal data, how do I achieve privacy, and the personal data definition can really vary from organization to organization. And so if you look at the personal data, it can really be any data that is directly linked or could be linked to a particular individual, right? And if you take the example of data that is directly linked to an individual, it can be his first name, last name, email address, and phone number. And it's clear that this particular individual can be identified easily if this data is accessed in an unauthorized way, right? However, there is data that is not directly associated with a particular individual. So this can be such as physical, mental, and cultural characteristics. So these are also some type of information, even though they are not directly linked to a user, that can be linkable. So by using those characteristics, we can also basically identify this particular user. Okay, so now the question remains, how do I achieve privacy? Okay, so there are several tools really that are out there that can help, really to ensure that you are managing customers, or customers are managing their end users' data with continuously updated data privacy rules and laws. So this can be really challenging. If you look at the California Consumer Privacy Act, the GDPR, and many others that are coming in different countries, it can really become really hard, basically, to prevent any sort of privacy violation inside your organization. And this is also a very critical point, not only for customers, but also for partners that can deliver the service in helping our customers to avoid all the stuff, this type of privacy risk inside the organization. Okay, so if you look at some of the statistics here, but I'll just go here very quickly. We have the demo that's coming, but I just wanted also to highlight some of the numbers here. And if you look at for example, 92% according to the survey, that you will find the details down on your left. 92% of security professionals really view data localization as an issue, as an important issue, and this is stressed again with the privacy regulations that we have globally, right? And also 73%, according to the security prediction from Gartner, that 72% of worldwide consumer will be regulated by modern privacy law by 2023, which actually is tomorrow. It's next year. Okay, so here organization really needs to manage numerous requirements when it comes to customer and employee privacy. I just like here to take a few examples that we can present and that we're going to talk about later in this presentation. So let's maybe start by the data minimization or data hoarding. Okay, so organizations should really make sure to collect only the minimum amount of data that is needed and delete that data after the initial intent for which it was collected is no longer required. Okay, so this really respects the consent that was given at the time of collection, and also reduces the organization potential risk. Okay, so the second use case that I really also wanted to talk here is about the cross-border data transfer. So Bernd talked about it previously in his presentation, but this is also a very, very important topic, how to make sure that European privacy-related information will stay in Europe and is not transferred by Teams, by email, by other communications solution to United States or in other countries. So this can be one of the requirements for the cross-border data transfer. But there may be also some additional requirement. Let's say you have an engineering team and they have access to this privacy-related data, and they are not allowed to really share this information with the sales team. So these are also something that we need to keep in mind, and the privacy solution can basically help you achieve that. And later in my presentation, I will also give you some details about what are the features that are available in Microsoft Preview, and the DLP is an example that have similar capabilities but different. And I'll explain what I mean by that. And I have a slide that we will go to present that. There is also the subject right request. Okay, so again, under GDPR and CCPA, any employee or customer can just request, hey, just give me all the information that you have collected about me. And this is really particularly challenging, specifically in unstructured type of environment. If the information is in database, you can create an SQL query to go and extract. If this is an unstructured environment, and so document can be in Word, in Excel, in PowerPoint, in Teams, well, this can be very difficult and very challenging to just go and identify where is the personal data related to a particular individual, and also how to collect that data and send back to the person that has requested. Okay, so handling these requirements manually can be really cumbersome and expensive, and it's really important to basically get a new tool that can help you fulfill those requests. And this is what we are going to talk about today, and this is why Priva is getting now so critical for most of the organizations that we are having this discussion. Okay, so if we at Microsoft, we are really in the platform business, right? So as you may know, we have the identity and access management solution that is now under the Intra family product. I'm sure you also heard about our XDR solution, our CM, Microsoft Sentinel, and many others. Bernd had done a great job in presenting our Microsoft Purview information protection governance to protect and govern the data, personal or not, at scale and automatically. There are also some machine learnings that can really just help to identify what is a contract, for example, in a particular environment. And so what we are really be what we'll be focusing in this presentation, it will be on Microsoft Priva, which is our new privacy solution, and that has two main use cases that we will see later in this presentation. Okay, so because we are talking about a privacy solution, so it's also important to keep in mind that Priva, because it's a privacy solution, is also designed with the concept of privacy by default. So all the insights and all the policies, you really need to explicitly opt in to prevent any conflicts and personal data being exposed in the solution. And so we also have a way to anonymize the data. So then if you have Samba, myself, that is an owner file, but you don't want the admin to know that you're having a case about me, or you're looking and extracting my personal data inside the organization. So we can have the pseudonymization. So this word is really hard, but just scramble a little bit and the username, so it won't be easily identifiable that you are really doing this request about me. Okay, so it's also very critical basically to have a role-based access control, and so that will make sure that only authorized admin can access to the privacy report and can access to the privacy dashboard. Okay, and yeah, so this is what I was referring to previously. You can, of course, depending on the level and the permission that you have, you could always find the real user behind those numbers, but we really have a way to just pseudonymize the name of the users. And again, that word is very, very hard for me to speak. So, and then I just wanted to pause here very quickly to just give you a high-level overview of the different user permissions, the role group, and depending on the two use cases, again, that we'll see in details. So on the privacy risk management side, depending on the use case. So if this is a privacy officer, a leader, a case analyst, a data investigator, or someone in the monitoring or operation, so you will already have some built-in role group that can just give just enough permission to the administrator to do the work, being to create, read, update of the risk management policies, or if this is a case analyst, for example, doing the investigation, finding the policy match, and many others. And if you look at the second use case here, this will be all about the subject right request. And so here we also have the administrator, for example, that can do that can have full access and administer and create subject right request. And we could always have some data stakeholders that will access to the case, for example, when added as a collaborator. And below, you will see a link where we will explain in details what are all the permission and all the options that are available, to really having in mind the principle of least privilege, so to give just enough permission to the administrator to be able to do the work. Okay, so actually, the previous suite and the Priva, these are two solutions that really works well together. We get asked quite often, really. So if, for example, I'm using Microsoft Information Protection, do I really need Priva? Or what benefits, for example, I'm getting from Microsoft Information Governance if I already have Priva in place? Or what is the main difference? And Björn explained that a little bit, between DLP policies and Priva. And basically, can I just use one and not the other? So these are all very valid questions. And during our conversation with customer and partners, we just really try to to explain basically what would be the difference and give some insight about those questions. So let's start, for example, with the information protection. And of course, the goal is not to go and talk about it deeply. However, just it is useful to set the context. So the information protection, we're really focusing on protecting sensitive information. As we said previously, applying some sensitivity levels that will encrypt the file, that will prevent non-unauthorized user to access the file. So this is really to protect the sensitive information from being compromised, corrupted, or lost. And on the other hand, the information Priva is about collecting, storing, and using in a way of handling the personal information appropriately in compliance with various regulations. We talk about GDPR and CCPA. You may really have to comply, okay, with. So note here that it's specific to PII information. So this is also one of the main difference between Priva and the previous suite, where you can basically have all sensitive information type. In Priva, on the other hand, we will really be focusing on the PII type of information, right? So this is one of the main difference here. And to the question, with leveraging information protection alone means that you are already compliant. And actually the answer is no, because IP alone, information protection alone, does not give the full context and the purpose of use of the personal information. And it was really not designed specifically to handle the requirements such as data minimization or data hoarding, and also data transfer, which again, you need to take the context, for example, in the cross-border data transfer or the data transfer within the same organization, but in different departments, okay? So in a nutshell, Priva leverages the information protection capabilities when it comes to, let's say, data classification. For example, you can have, out-of-the-box sensitive information types or custom sensitive information type that you can create to really fit your own needs. Okay, so there are part of the wider information protection coverage that are also used in Priva. But however, just to really highlight here, Priva adds the ability to more sophisticated policy. Again, we spoke about data overexposure, data minimization, as well as providing useful insight and visibility into privacy risk and some recommendation basically on how to mitigate them within the Discover PII information. Okay, so this is about information protection. And now, very quickly, the data lifecycle management, which just means that I have some information, and we took the example of the contract. I want to keep it for 5 years, and after 5 years, I will delete the data. Okay, so this is really crucial, given the amount of data that is increasing, to be able to very easily find this data, classify them, and delete them after a period of time. Okay, so in many ways, Priva and data lifecycle management complement each other and form a great pair. So having an effective governance means that in all cases, you will also ensure that you delete the PII linkable data or linked data within the stipulated durations, let's say 5 years, for example. So although the DLM can be really a great first step. Basically, if you don't have Priva, to just say, I have this personal data, I want to keep them, and delete after 7 years. But the DLM won't be, won't help, for example, in achieving the data transfer privacy regulatory requirements. However, Priva can bridge that gap for you. Okay. So again, if there are some questions, I'm sure the folks, will answer in the chat. Unfortunately, I'm not able to monitor the chat as of now. And so for the DLP, again, this is also, the Priva can detect and prevent the sharing of sensitive information within the same department or in cross-border, if you're sending, for example, another country out of Europe. So Priva and DLP use the same classification engine, but as I said, the internal data sharing, this is something that would be specific to Priva when it's come to the PII. Okay, and now let's really talk a little bit about the e-discovery and also the PUV compliance management. So as you may know, the e-discovery really designed to go and look for some informations if there is on the e-discovery case, or if there is a litigation or something in those lines. the privacy management can also detect, conflicts that are arising from illegal or confidential hold. Let's say that I'm running a subject right request and looking for all the information about a particular user. So in this case, I will identify with the information that I will collect that some of these information are sensitive, some of them are confidential, with some of them who have a legal hold. So this will really just give, much more context to be able to process all this data. And last but not the least, you have the compliance manager, which will give you the states of where to stand based on several regulations. And we are also now having more and more privacy-related assessments directly in the compliance manager. All right, so this was a very long intro, but let's now talk about the two main components, even if we really did already into the introduction, but the two main components that we have in Microsoft First privacy solution. So the first one is the privacy risk management solution that will help to go and identify where is privacy data in your organization. And the second component is the subject right request that can really help you manage at scale and respond with confidence, to subject right request or subject access to data request. Okay. So now let's speak about the first component, which is the privacy risk management. Okay. So the step one really in being able to discover the personal data in your organization is really just being able to identify where is this personal data, and also by leveraging some of the sensitive information type that we can already use. So think of it as the social security number, the passport number, the name, medical information, address, phone numbers, and many others. And this solution really help identify the critical risk that will rise from the data being overexposure, data minimization, data hoarding that we talked about previously, and also the risk that is coming with the cross-border data transfer. Okay, so once we have identified this risk, organization now really struggle with figuring out what action they can take to mitigate this risk. So, I know that, with the conversation that we have with some partners, they may spend a lot of time in developer resources to build APIs. We just, try to connect different system and security governance together to address the risk. But the truth is they are not very efficient, and we really need to have a solution, built with privacy in mind and built for privacy like Priva to be able to not only identify this risk, but also being able to automate and mitigate some of those risks. And last but not the least, empower the end users to take the decision. So basically, if I am owning a SharePoint site that have access to too many people, so I can just receive a digest saying, hey, we have identified some personal information in this SharePoint file or in the SharePoint repository. So we think that you might want to have a look to maybe just remove all the access or modify at least the access. And we are going to talk about that as well. Okay. So the solution comes, with three main policies. Okay, so you can either use one of them, so you have the data overexposure, the data transfer, data minimization, but you always have, the option to create, your own type of custom rules. And if you look at, for example, I have some screenshots about the way that we are thinking about creating the policy. If you look at the data overexposure, for example, you can take that as a template and select the sensitive information type, select the users that you really want to target in this policy, and also select some of the conditions that we'll use. If this is, I want to look for all the public access, the external, the internal, and then specify the alert threshold and decide the policy mode. And our recommendation is when you're starting and creating the new policy to really keep the learning mode and test mode on for at least a few days, just to avoid in the beginning, to have too many notification, and to also the system, to prevent the system to reach out to the end user. For example, when you are creating a policy, it's usually a best practice to just keep it in learning mode. So now let's dive into the demo environment. So when you enable Priva, from the preview portal, you can have a trial license that you can enable in your tenant for 90 days. So usually after 48 hours, but you can even go up to 1 week depending on the environment and the amount of data that we need to process. So really start seeing here some insights about the personal data and some alerts as well about the things that we have identified in the organization. Okay, so now if we look at the data profile, we will see here in this particular example, so this is the admin experience, and so I will see that I have some PI data, for example, in my SharePoint, in my Teams, in my Exchange, in my OneDrive, and I also have a map that you can see in the screen, just telling me where is the sensitive data in my organization, if I'm a global organization, and also the top personal data type that we have identified across the organization. So here we recognize that more than 200 personal data type, including name, full name, physical address, license number, and mail address have been identified in this particular environment. So for the partners, for example, if you want to have an assessment, so this can be really fairly easy to enable in the customer environment, and then you will start getting the insight about where personal data is in this environment. So you don't need really to have peer review type of licenses enabled in the customer tenant. It's always better, of course, to get peer review, but this is not mandatory. You can just go and start POC or an evaluation of Microsoft Priva without needing to have any other advanced SKU like we have in Microsoft Preview, for example. Okay, so now let's drill down further from the data profile. So here I can see the access level of the PI data identified in this environment. So if you remember previously here, if you look at the name, if I take here the pointer, so we can see that those are not the real username, so I just some anonymization here to prevent again the admin from accessing the data that may not be required for the job actually. Okay, so with the right level of permission, of course, you will be able to find who is the real user behind those numbers. Okay, so if we continue here and just take a look at the alerts that we can detect in the tool. So Priva makes it really easy because you have out-of-the-box policies, so you just have to enable them. But it's general recommendation where possible to also create some custom rules. And in this example that I'm presenting, let's say that you have configured a cross-border data transfer policy between UK and APAC, and so then if you are finding maybe a message exchange in Teams, so this will be blocked, and we see that in a minute, but you will have the policy that will just fire on telling you that hey, we have found potential privacy violation in the organization. Okay, and if you in each alert we can drill down and really find easily the content that originally triggered the policy, and find the information about the personal data actually within each content that has been automatically highlighted here. And if I just click on the reward discussion, for example, here I can get directly from the tool get some insight about all the information that are shared. And from this very tool, I have the option to either apply a sensitivity level to really echo to the previous conversation, or revoke access, or even notify the end user saying that, hey, we may have a problem here. Okay. Now let's have a look at the end user experience, all right? So remember the cross-border data transfer policy that you can enable is also applicable on Teams, which I'm sure everybody or most of the our customers are using today. And so if one user is trying to send some PI data to another user out of the same country, or if the policy was between two departments. So once you really try to send the email, it will be automatically blocked. Say, hey, this is against the corporate policy. We can even directly from this window link you to a training video that you can basically go and take a look at. Okay. And this is the first basically use case. So if you look at the second use case here, which is about the data overexposure. So we will send a digest to email to the end user saying that we have identified some potential issues. So you have some personal data that is too broadly accessible in the organization. What do you want to do? Do you want to retain the file? Do you want to remove the access? So by really empowering the end user, really believe that this is the best way to move forward, because usually the IT team or the security team, they do not necessarily have all the information and all the context behind a particular file, but the owner of the file usually does. So it's really important to have this connection and this link back directly to the file owner. Okay. So the second policy here is about the data minimization. And so let's say that you have a file that you have collected, but you really did not access it for the last 30 days, 90 days. And so it automatically sends you an email, again, the same digest, asking you if you still need to keep this data, or if you just want to just delete the file, for example. Okay, so these are really the key use cases that we have with our privacy risk management solution. Again, just as a recap, that will help identify where is privacy related data in the organization. So we talk about the key policies that are enabled by default, data overexposure, data minimization, and cross-border data transfer. That you can use those policies out of the box, or you can create a custom policy. For example, if you want to run a POC in the customer environment. So these regulations that we spoke about, the GDPR and CCPA, again, also grant the end user to just go and ask you, hey, just give me all the information that you have about me first. And also they can ask you to delete those informations as well. So this is what the subject request solution in Priva can really help you to basically fulfill those requests. So if you look at here, again, more and more regulation will require it. We spoke about GDPR and CCPA, but I'm sure many others will come. And let's say this is the process. Usually the end user could ask you, I want to exercise my right to access the data. I want to exercise my right to data portability, and also my right to be forgotten, which basically means that I want you to go and delete the data. So we will speak a little bit about our roadmap, and Wanda will handle that session. But I know we have something coming really pretty soon. Okay, so if you look at the process, and so then the subject will just ask you, hey, give me all the information that you have about me, and we'll go and automatically gather all relevant information based on the email address, for example, the name. And once we have gathered all this information, we also go through the process of detect and flag for conflicts. Let's say, for example, we have identified a Excel spreadsheet, and in this Excel file, you have my name and Catherine's name and many others, but you really don't want to just send a confidential file to the user. So you also need to, in the tool, be able to redact, just redact some of the critical information in the file, and also keeping the context is very important. So finding if there are any legal hold in a document, for example, or if there are some confidential, classification level attached to it. So once we have, gathered all the information, we've done all the, we did the review to annotate and to redact the content. We also need to securely collaborate, between or amongst the users that are working in this case. So then we can also leverage Power Automate to add some reminder in the calendar, create private channel to just discuss over this particular request. So from my experience, I've seen some partners that will leverage Priva APIs to do this work, but they will create a custom portal where the end user will log in. So we have to first verify his identity. So maybe by validating his passport number or any other mechanism that will help us to make sure and to give us the confidence that the user that is doing the request is the real user. And then the homegrown portal from the partner will connect to the Priva API and go and gather all the relevant information about the particular user. So Priva will look primarily in Microsoft 365 ecosystem, so meaning SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams. We have also announced at Ignite that you have now the option to upload some files. Okay, so even if they are not necessarily on Microsoft ecosystem, you have this option to upload the file that can also be included in the subject right request process. Okay. So now let's look at an example. So you can just start here by providing some personal attributes. It can be the first name, the last name. We can go and look at really where we want to basically look this information. Again, this is really quick, but just wanted to show you also how easy it will be to just go and start creating a subject right request, identifying the user. So, personal attributes, nickname, additional email, phone number, specifying also the time period that you want to do the search, and add some information about where and the location basically that you want to include in your search. Okay, so once we've done that and the request is created, Priva will automatically search and retrieve all the relevant content for further review. So it can take some time depending on the amount of data that we have and the size in your tenant. But in the meantime, we can see the list of all the previous subject right requests in the organization, and by creating the subject request, you have the option to specify a due date. And so if for some reason some of the requests are past the due date, so you may also be able to act very quickly on those. So if you look at here the particular subject right request, so on Albert, for example, we can go and we have found some specific files, and if you look at in the middle, you will see there are some confidential type of information in those files, or multiple person in the same files. So then you really need, if you need to send this file back to the user that has requested, you need to make sure that you will just redact, all the information that is not related to the user that has requested demand. So we can really do that by just going here to annotate, and you can click here to redact, and that will just remove all the unnecessary information before you send the content back to the end user. Okay, so I also wanted here to speak very quickly about the APIs, because if we need to do this at scale, or for example, to integrate with a third-party privacy management solution, the API is really key. So these are some of the use cases that we have and again, you will have all the details in our documentation. And in the interest of time, I just try to move here a little bit quickly, but you can always reference back to the API schema, basically, if you want to create your own application. So we can integrate again to the previous point to third-party privacy management solutions, something about OneTrust, to Security AI, and many others. And so they could leverage, Priva API to go and start the subject request in Microsoft ecosystem. And again, you also have the option to, upload some additional files. And so here you can see, Security IT and many others can just, integrate with those solutions as well. And so with that, I'd just like to pause here for a second to see if there are any additional questions. If not, Catherine, I would just give the mic back to you, and I also remain available if you have any follow-up questions.
Thank you, Samba. There's a lot of chat going on, which Ben and Randall have been answering. So thank you very much for giving the overview of Priva. And to introduce our next speaker, Hamad Raju, who is joining us from the Priva marketing team, who is going to talk to us about partner programs. And after this session, we will then have a short break before we bring everybody back on to have a discussion about some of the topics you've heard today and to answer further questions. So Hamad, thank you very much for joining us, and over to you, please.
Absolutely. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, depending on where you're joining from. Super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me for this discussion. What I will do is I'll use about next 30 minutes to kind of walk you through what we're doing, where we are in terms of enabling our partner ecosystem. I'm going to start sharing my slides here. Somebody can give me a signal as soon as you can see the slides. That would be awesome. All right, should be coming right up. So I'll do a little bit of orientation first as the slides come on live here, in terms of just our platform investments overall. Some of that you've already heard Samba and Randall talk about, so I'm not going to spend too much time on those particular topics, but just I'll kind of do a little bit of reorientation, if you will. Awesome, thank you very much. So, like I said, I'm excited to be here. My name is Hamad Raju. I work in product marketing team. I look at our compliance risk and privacy ecosystem all up. Bernd and Catherine will join me in this conversation towards the end as well. But feel free to reach out if you have any questions, comments, concerns. You can also ping me on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. You will get these slides later on. Let's just talk a little bit about investments that Microsoft is making, and also the opportunity that we see for you all in the broader Microsoft security ecosystem. Very recently, we commissioned a Forrester report to conduct a total economic impact to examine how our partners can benefit from building and operating security, compliance, risk, identity, and privacy-related practices. And here are a few key takeaways from that study relating to compliance, where our Microsoft Priva solutions also play a big part. The opportunity for our partners to invest in our compliance and privacy ecosystem is growing. According to Forrester, partners that have invested in, for example, Microsoft Priva practices saw a 16% year-over-year increase in their revenue related to those solutions. We're also seeing that funnel growing, and that meaning the number of engagements that include our compliance, risk, and privacy solutions, particularly Microsoft Priva, is also continuing to rise. More than a quarter of engagements with customers now include either compliance, risk, or privacy solutions. So the funnel is growing, and I believe you're also seeing those play out in your customer conversations as well. So speaking of the ecosystem in terms of where we are and where we're going, just kind of take a look at what the ecosystem looks like today. We have many partners, including yourselves in the audience, are already part of this. I'm sure you're familiar with this. There are almost 200 plus partners that are building integrations, value-added services, advisory services for Microsoft Purview as well as Microsoft Priva. And this kind of provides a super broad coverage across our value proposition. Think of it from Purview and Priva perspective across devices, apps, cloud services, as well as on-premise systems. So this is coming along super nicely, and we're very excited to see it grow. And hopefully, after today's conversation, you will all be interested in continuing to join this journey with us. So big part of our push for developing this robust ecosystem is leveraging our Microsoft Intelligent Security Association. Once again, I believe most of you are part of it. If not, let's just talk about it, how we can get you to be part of it. Member benefits, there are tons of member benefits, and there's an opportunity to deepen your technology and your service and advisory offerings and relationship within the Microsoft security ecosystem. One of the biggest, most valuable benefits that I see that our partners love and enjoy is the ability to list their solutions in the MISA catalog, getting that support from co-marketing perspective. There are about 100 plus Purview/Priva offerings already in the catalog, and that's constantly growing. So I encourage you all, those who are MISA partners today, to make sure that your services, advisory, integrations, and value propositions are listed in that catalog, because from there on, it allows us to drive co-sell motion to a scale as well. So let's just take a step back, right? Like, what does a partner journey look like? How do we think about it? How do we rationalize? How do we make our investments, both from a product perspective, but also from a marketing and sales perspective? So we tend to think about these partner lifecycle engagement in three big buckets. One is the build with motion, the other one is the market with motion, and the third one is the sell with motion. So build with is all about enabling you to develop your services, your integrations, your products on top of our platform. Priva is a big part of that. So super excited for you to be coming here today and joining us in this conversation. So would love to help you in that journey as you go and build your services and value-added propositions on top of our Priva platform. And once you've done that, we want you to get into our MISA ecosystem, right, as quickly as possible, because then what you do is you get tons of benefits, like I talked about, in terms of getting closer to the product roadmap, visibility, being able to provide feedback, being able to leverage co-branded assets, marketing, PR, blog, social media campaigns. All of that becomes possible really because then we're working super closely with you in the marketing bucket, if you will. And then last but not the least, once you have your solutions listed in the solution catalog, it makes it way more easier for us and Microsoft sellers to help you drive that scale, but also make it more transactable in most customer settings. So that's just kind of lights up our co-sell scenario. So again, think of it like a journey from build with, market with, sell with. If you've already developed your solutions, start asking yourselves, how do you want to get, if and how you want to become part of our security ecosystem under MISA, and then also think about how do you want to leverage and publish your services in our marketplaces, if you will, so we can help you drive the co-sell motion at scale. So I just wanted to paint a left to right view here for you. So you kind of, again, it's part of my orientation effort, if you will. So as you know, Microsoft Priva helps you and customers unify information protection, data governance, risk management, compliance management, all of that. So our customers can manage data, their entire digital data state in one place. So what we do is we enable that visibility across all the environments, across all the planes, and help find those gaps, help plug those gaps in terms of data exposure, and simplify through automation, and also stay up to date with regulatory requirements. And most importantly, enabling our joint set of customers to keep their most important asset data safe. So the same underlying principles, platform, the basic horizontals, the unified data map that we have also powers our Microsoft Priva solution. So it is all built on the same platform. It all benefits from the same value propositions. But Priva, as you know, as you've heard since morning through Samba, Byrne, and others, and Randall and others too, understand like what it means and what are the vertical building blocks that we have in here. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit from here on the ecosystem and extensibility side of it, and I'll come back to Priva focus and talk a little bit about what are the key investments that we are making and the opportunities for you to go build your business on top of that. So quick disclaimer, I'm not looking at Q&A. If you have questions, please keep posting. There's an awesome team here that will help answer. And if there are any unanswered questions, of course, I'll go back and reply after this presentation is over. So let's just take a pause here. Let's look at this. So what we have done is that we have built extensibility at the heart of our platform, and that allows us to bring our value proposition. Let's just put the Microsoft Priva lens here to not just Microsoft 365 data, but in a true multi-cloud, multi-platform, distributed digital data estate for our customers, right? So we have connectors that allow us to bring non-Microsoft data into our substrate and into our Microsoft 365 platform, and then we light up many different compliance scenarios. Similarly, for Priva, we leverage our data map capabilities, like I was just mentioning. You will continue to see us innovate in this space, and you will learn more as we go into future in terms from a product roadmap perspective as we light up more and more multi-cloud scenarios there. We have a rich set of APIs. Some of my co-presenters have already talked a little bit about what those APIs are. I'll touch on it a little bit more from Priva perspective, but we are operating on a principle that everything that we build today, from a product perspective, has an API and extensibility layer, so our partners such as yourselves can build value-added services on it. It's a journey for us. We are constantly adding new APIs, adding more depth and breadth to our extensibility story, and we will continue to do that. Customizations are super critical and important, not just for our customers, but also for our partners. So you can customize the product to meet the customer need, if you will. That's where a lot of our Power Automate integrations come in. We provide you with those workflow level hooks into the product particularly. And what you can do is then you can customize, create custom workflows, and really bring your magic to that equation and solve individual customer pain points. And you can do that at scale. Of course, as you know, Power Automate itself is a robust set of platform capabilities, and that can be extended in any number of ways. And then last but not the least is the trusted partner ecosystem. Once you come work with us, you want to make sure that you're part of that robust and trusted ecosystem. So customers have trust in you. The customers can discover your solution. Again, think about the build with, market with, and sell with motion. So we want to support you in that journey, and we will continue to expand this ecosystem as we go forward. So what does that particularly mean from Priva perspective? I'm going to build this slide out. I think we saw a similar version of this earlier today, so I'm not going to drain the slide, but this is a great example that we have We know that subject right request extends beyond what we have in Microsoft 365. So we have built extensibility at the heart of it. So you as a partner can leverage these APIs, help customers automate this. That could be a lot of customers, vast majority of customers are using homegrown tools for SRR automation. So it's a great opportunity for you as a partner and go and say, hey, like, hey, I understand how Microsoft enables it. I can build that hook into your existing system. And or if they've invested in a third-party system, you can say, hey, I can make it work across, for example, OneTrust and Microsoft Priva. This can work in unison to solve your set of needs, if you will. So we anticipate and we are hearing some of these stories, but we believe that this piece will continue to grow and you will go and drive more and more of these conversations because that's what really customers are looking for. But more importantly, we want to hear from you, like, how is it playing out? Are you getting into those opportunities? Are you seeing the need for these APIs? If you want us to enhance it, if you want us to expand it, we do want to hear from you. All right, so what do these APIs enable in the context of Microsoft Priva? So you heard it's really all about, again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it's really all about automation, scalability, and the built-in integration capability. So the 4 or 5 partners that you saw listed, they're all part of our MISA motion, MISA association. Those are built-in integration, so we can help you drive pilots, POCs in those customer contexts, and we will continue to add more partner solutions in this catalog as we go further along in this journey. But the real value proposition from a customer perspective is they get to have a full left to right privacy subject rights conversation covering both Microsoft and non-Microsoft sources in a streamlined, integrated, and a built-in manner. All right, so enough of orientation. You can say, hey, Hamad, this is great. Tell us, what are you doing overall to help us be more successful, right? So I want to share a quick message around what are the investments that we're making in you or partners to really help you drive customer success in the coming year and beyond. We have a new immersion events that will build customer interest and generate intent to drive deeper engagements, both pre-sale and post-sale. From a post-sale perspective, there are usage workshops that'll help our customers realize more value in the investment that they have already made. And you as partners can help us drive that and benefit tremendously from your practice development perspective. We're also doubling down in our enabling our partner incentives. That's the funding that's available in a project-based work to drive long-term customer value. And as always, we're looking for new ways to help your technical folks to get up to speed on our product, not only in its current shape and form, but also from a future roadmap perspective. As you heard, Randall share some of those insights. So we are on this journey with you. So full left to right view once again. We will continue to invest more in these, and I'll share a couple of examples as we go forward. But more importantly, just kind of give us feedback in terms of what's working for you versus not, so we can bring that back into our teams and reiterate and come back to you with an incremental value in coming months and quarters and years. All right, let's talk a little bit about ESEF. I believe most of you are already familiar with it, but if not, just a quick orientation on this. So Microsoft empowers its partners to accelerate deal conversions and post-sale implementations, right? So leveraging end customer investment fund, ESEF as it's called, dollars, is a great way to help partners move faster. ECF is funding of services delivered to end customers in support of Microsoft products to drive deployment or migration of offer to Microsoft products and solutions or to provide support. These services can be delivered by ESEF approved partners. So the value of ESEF is that it can help partners through this life cycle. Funding is typically used to help build POCs, pre-sales activities, deployment and training services. So if you're all building your privacy muscle. If you're all part of our Microsoft Priva ecosystem, this is a great value proposition for you to leverage. So I encourage you all to reach out to if you have your partner development managers assigned to you or Microsoft field sellers that you work with, to get really more information about ASIP and find out where and how you can leverage it both for Microsoft Priva as well as Microsoft Purview. Let's talk a little bit more about the workshops. So build intent workshops in particular are another way that Microsoft is investing in partners, such as yourself. These workshops are really partner-led engagements with customers that demonstrate Microsoft solutions and outcomes throughout the customer lifecycle. Again, it's a mechanism, structured, framework-based, repeatable approach that allows you to bring their value to our joint set of customers, if you will. The sales workshops on one side are designed to highlight unknown risks that customers may have in their own environment. So again, there's a connective tissue here. If you're working on Microsoft Purview with some of those customers, you can easily extend that conversation into Microsoft Priva as well, because security and privacy go hand in hand, as you all know. So these workshops kind of highlight those issues and blind spots within customers' own data and provide a roadmap and recommendations on really how they can mitigate those challenges through the Microsoft Purview and Priva solutions, right? So you can just kind of help customers reorientate and help them understand, hey, what's your data landscape looks like? What are the gaps that you're seeing? How we can help you, both from compliance and risk perspective, but also more importantly, from privacy perspective. The usage workshops are designed as a first step in having important discussion with your customers regarding driving the usage of the solutions that they already own. And I think in today's macroeconomic situation that we are all in, it is imperative, if not critically important, for our customers to get the maximum value from their existing investments. And you, our partners, can play an amazing and massive role in that. So you can see that it falls into the sales plays that we have: protected, governed, sensitive data. Our conversation today is really more focused on the second sales play here, which is the mitigate compliance and privacy risks. So you can just kind of drive that left to right sales to usage scenario. Usage workshops are new in FY23, so we are super keen to learn from you as you go and drive scale with these workshops. And we want to hear from you in terms of what's working and what's not working. So each workshop includes partner readiness resources, sales and marketing tools, and templates to guide your customer conversations. And partners can receive up to $5,000 for each workshop delivered based on eligibility, and can potentially leverage all of these 4 workshops depending on what your practices are and how you're driving those customer conversations, and really helping customers with their most important asset, that is data, both from security and privacy perspective. So my call to action to you before I pass it to Bernd and Catherine is to please orientate yourselves into what we are doing, what we shared with you, understand the product truth, understand where we are and where we're going. Think about how do you want to leverage this opportunity. I shared the Forrester total economic impact with you. So we see that there's amazing opportunity for our partners to come in and leverage and drive this in customer conversations. And we are with you every step of the way. We want to hear from you from a product perspective. We want to hear from you from a practice building perspective. We want to hear from you from a solution integration perspective. We want to hear from you from a customer conversation perspective, right? Those insights are golden nuggets for us, and we want to capture as many as possible. So the feedback is critically important. Please give us feedback. And I think most importantly, if you kind of take a step back, we can really feel good about what we all are doing here. We are helping our customers secure their most important asset, that is data, helping them meet their privacy requirements, their compliance requirements, helping them mitigate their risk. It's an amazing journey that we are all together on, and let's continue on this journey together, and let's help our customers with their most important security and privacy related outcomes. So I'm super excited to be getting to know you all, to be able to share what I shared with you all. But now I would love to pass it back to Catherine, Randall, and Bern to drive this conversation forward. But super thanks from my side, and I'll look at Q&A from here. Catherine, over to you.
Thank you, Hamad. Much appreciated. As I mentioned at the beginning of this session, Priva is only just a year old. It was announced in October last year. So partner programs, partner motions, whilst we have the great things that Hamad covered today, it is continuously in development. So any feedback that you would like to give us on what would help you, what you would like to see, again, as Hamad shared, please do let us know. We really are here to help you and to help your customers on their privacy journey. From a direct partner perspective, in terms of enablement, myself and Samba, who presented on Priva, are here to help you in the sense, if you want a one-to-one briefing, if you want hands-on enablement for your privacy teams, if you want guidance on how to build up your privacy practice with Microsoft, then we are very much here to help you do that. Also, if you would like to run webinars with your customers or workshops, again, this is something that we would be very happy to support. And in terms of we're the partner team, we also work very closely with what we call the GBBs, who are the global black belts, who are our customer facing specialists in this sense for Priva and also for Purview. So I'd like to ask Ben just to say a few words about how we can collaborate, not just from us supporting you as a partner, but in terms of directly in front of the customer as well. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Exactly, that's my charter, to really support you partners also in front of the customers, as I mentioned also in my introduction. So my view is that sooner or later we can hopefully talk about joint opportunities, customers that you are working on and customers that we are for sure working on. So there's often, yeah, the same customer that we approach from both sides. And we can definitely, yeah, be stronger together, especially since a lot of these solutions are new. We have also, yeah, reached out to a lot of new partners, especially the advisory partners. And so because Priva and Purview does have a lot of connections with legal and with privacy aspects. Therefore, we don't expect that every partner already knows our solutions in depth. And I see that this really only comes over time when we work jointly in customer situations. So when we were most successful was when partners and Microsoft have worked together, and we have enabled you while you were doing a project and while we were working together on a certain customer opportunity. So that's my my take, really, to reach out to us and then discuss joint opportunities under NDA, obviously, so we won't share that with other partners when you're approaching a customer, etc. But we can help each other from my point of view and, yeah, drive those customer conversations together.
Thank you, Ben. And Ben is part of the EMEA team. He does have counterparts in each of the countries, so, and also globally for those of you who very kindly joined us from outside the EMEA region, and we are more than happy to connect you with both the partner specialists and the GBB customer teams. I think as well, Randall is going to share some of the things that he's doing with two partners in particular to help them build, no names sharing the partners, of course, in some of the things that he's doing to support partners from an engineering perspective. Thank you, Randall.
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, so from an engineering perspective, let me first state saying that partners are our bread and butter. We can't scale to everyone. My team is very, very small. So it's myself and another person from engineering, and we cover the world. So that's it. I mean, every customer that there is. Now, there are counterparts of mine that cover different solutions, anything in the Purview space and everything as well. But to kind of go into what Catherine said, so there are two partners, one that I'm working with in the UK and another one that I'm working here in the US. Both of them were funded by ESIP. So it's kind of timely that, like you said, we're having this conversation. I support them both through a proof of concept. So we have a very defined set of criteria that we're working with each customer for to see what maps to what their use cases are and their feedback. From my perspective, I take that data directly back, and that's how we shape the product. So from an engineering perspective, I can't reiterate enough of what has already been said, which is please, please, please give us feedback. Where this group is a little bit different from other groups is we can go ahead and bring that feedback within weeks versus months than semester planning. And what I mean by that is I can have very real conversations and we can get something put out in a matter of, say, 4 to 6 weeks, if it's relevant or whatever else, and it makes the right use case. But where engineering helps with partners as well, if there's, like you said, any kind of enablement, if there are playbooks that you need, if there's any kind of guidance that you guys want, please ask. We do our absolute best to work on that, contribute on that. If you guys want, assistance, review, I'm not going to create the statement of works for you, but if you guys would like another set of those eyes or whatever else, we're happy to contribute anything that we can. And just to let you know, it is a deep partnership from engineering, and we have design partners that we work with as well. So typically I work for 5 to 7 customers at a time. I go really deep with each one of those. So we want to see exactly how they use the product, why it's not working, why it meets certain needs, why it doesn't meet other needs. But then some of the other things we've started doing is maybe as we develop things like auto redaction, we're reaching out to those customers via their partners to find out, are we making the mark, right? And if we're not, maybe what are all the other partners, not the partners, but what are the customers using in that space, right? So as we design our feature, how do we, remain competitive in those types of things? But so if there's anything else that you guys need, feel free to reach out to your account team, reach out to your partner account manager, through Catherine, to Samba. You guys can then, come directly to me, whoever else. I don't want you to think that this is all done in a silo, because it's not. We do take all the feedback very, very seriously, and then we try to triage it and then build out with the existing list of features. But to kind of, to drive it home, any of the features that I spoke about, I would say 80% of those came directly from conversations interacting with partners and customers.
Thank you, Randall. And whilst we're all here, I know I said earlier that we planned to have a short break, then we'd go into the Q&A, but it makes absolutely more sense to go straight into the Q&A now rather than have 10 minutes and everyone come back for 10 minutes. So I hope that's okay. So Randall, one question that we had in the chat earlier is, what is the greatest driver that your customer is looking to Priva to solve, please? And please, audience, if you could put some questions in the chat. We now have everybody, engineering, partner, customer, to answer any last questions you may have. Although, of course, do feel free to follow up with people individually if you don't want to ask now, or indeed think of something later. Sorry, Randall, over to you, please.
No, it's great. A lot of different things. Most customers come to us because there's a regulatory requirement. That's why a lot of people are reaching out. In the US especially, there's some new laws, I think, that kick in January that were passed outside of California, for example. There's new laws that are coming up as part of the EU, right? So that's why they get in touch with us. A lot of customers have documented some kind of privacy structure in place, but most of them don't know how to implement that. So that's what I see a lot of them having great difficulty with, or a lot of them just don't understand the structure of their data, what's unstructured, what's structured, where the PII lives, those types of things. That's a lot of the reasons people reach out. But the biggest requests that we get, things are like data at rest, of course, multi-cloud, and the list goes on and on and on. But I'd be more than glad to listen, if you guys have specific partners that you approach Priva with, or privacy in general, what their greatest reason for actually coming to the product would be.
Thank you, Randall. And Ben, similar question to yourself, please, in terms of, but this time from a purview perspective, what are you seeing from the Microsoft portfolio, the most demand for your time?
Yeah, most customers start with information protection, that I see. So they start with labeling and classification, but I think there are multiple ways to start with Purview. So, for example, I think every customer nowadays would need our premium e-discovery solution when they have an investigation, even if they don't use classification, labeling, and all of what I talked about before. So, and in other cases, customers start with records management, yeah, especially these highly regulated financial services customers that I talked about, or pharmaceutical customers. They need to retain data and make sure that they are fulfilling their regulations. So I don't think that there is only one or way possible to start with Purview. You can come from multiple angles. And as I tried to explain in my session, the things are related to each other. So the different solutions make more sense when you use more of them. But you can start also on the more right-hand side of my workflow diagram, which I shared when, for example, when you have an investigation. And partners as well as customers need support all along the way because these solutions are having many options, how to configure them, how to set it up. This is also not just an IT play. Purview is very much bringing multiple stakeholders together. Yeah, for example, as I mentioned, with records and retention, this is often finance or legal driven. With insider risk management, somebody like research and development may come into play. The Workers' Council may have concerns. The legal and department also needs to take part in such an investigation. So that is also why we are reaching out to more and more partners who have these contacts, because Microsoft is typically only talking to IT departments and not to these other parties that are stakeholders for those solutions. That's why we need these advisories, the Ernst & Young's, KPMG, PwC, BDO, and all of these partners that we have here today in our session. So that's why I would really like to work jointly together with partners to see which kind of customer access you have, which stakeholders you are talking to, and then we can discuss from which angle we are coming, and then be stronger together.
Thank you, Ben.
I'd like to add. Can I add something?
Sorry, Randall.
I think we said this in the chat, but just so that it drive the point home, please don't think that this has to be an E5 customer that has IP&G or one of those licenses. It does not. This can be an E1, an E3, or an E5 customer. We actually spin up the features underneath the hood when they actually purchase whichever module that it is. And looking at where we're at, I don't think we're necessarily constrained even on the PRM module that you have to buy all the licenses for that user base. So even if they've got 80,000 people, maybe we start very small, looking at a deal that's 1,000, let's prove the capability if need be, and then they can expand it from there, because I believe that's, probably a way that we're going to probably get into the market. And the same thing on the on the SRR module. Maybe even if in a proof of concept they want to buy 5 or 10, that's great, and then they can add them onesie twosies with a credit card. Most of the customers I've seen are doing that, and that's how they're getting through, say, their PMO or their purchasing department, especially on the SRR part, because they just put them on credit cards or something along those lines, and they don't have to go get approval because they're not asking for $60,000 or $100,000 at a time. They're very, very small segments. So I just wanted to put it out there that it's very flexible. Customers of all sizes, they don't always have to be the big, massive, complex customers to use the solution.
Thank you, Randall. There's one question in the chat about health support in MIA. So could you please contact me directly? My email address is in the chat, and I will make sure you're introduced to the right person in MIA or any other regions, or indeed it may be Samba and myself if it's enablement initially you're looking for. I don't think there are any more questions in the chat. If anyone does have anything final to ask, please do let us know. But could I please ask you to complete the short survey? Events like this, we're continuously looking to how we can improve them for yourselves, that we are delivering the right content. So any feedback would be much appreciated, please. Just one final check of the chat, if there's any questions. Yeah, I think we're good. And on that note, I'd like to thank the speakers to today. I'd like to thank Triple Play for setting up the event. And more importantly, of course, you, our partners, for taking the time to spend a few hours with us this afternoon, or indeed morning, evening, depending where you are based. And we very much look forward to following up with you if we're not in contact with you already. We are very much here to support you. And thank you for your time. Have a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Stella.